Welcome back to the Apatros review. I'm your host T600 and I come on behalf of Skynet to kick your human ass. Eh, eh, eh. I'll be back.
Shut up, you T600. Hi there, welcome back to the Apatros Review. I'm your host, Mo Sipka, and join me as I take you on a ride through the wild world of science fiction action horror, off my personal DVD collection. As you just saw, that's actually some footage I got from Terminator Salvation video game, which is my review for this episode. It's actually my first video game review. Now, I will do these video game reviews very limited because I only have a limited number of games, like just around 20 something games. So, second. So, this is the only video game review I'm doing for this year. I will do more in the future, aside from next year onwards. Anyway, this review is of Terminator Salvation, which was a 2009 PS3 video game. I'm reviewing the PS3 version, and so it was also available on Xbox 360 and Windows PC. There was an arcade game, but like I said, I'm only doing the PS3 version. Now, this is a third-person shooter game. It's got single-player and two-player co-op modes. There are 9 main levels. The general playability difficulty on easy is fairly easy, or for the rail sequences is surprisingly difficult. You get at least one constant AI support on the single-player campaign, although usually you get 2 or 3. The enemy AI competence is generally dumb, but surprisingly persistent. And there's no boss fights in this game. You have a two-weapon limit on your player, including 2 types of explosives. The worst weapon is the M4A1 assault rifle, which is the starting weapon you start with. And the best weapons are the Remington 870 shotgun and the RPG-7 rocket launcher. Now, when it comes to video game franchises, the Terminator franchise has been one of the most wildly ropey franchises ever to grace the industry, with perhaps the exception of the few games that came out before the PlayStation era, like the 1990 video game adaptation of the original Terminator, which was one of the very first sandbox open world games, and the very early version of first-person shooter, and the cult classic Robocop vs. the Terminator. The few Terminator games that came out on the PlayStation consoles have been pretty mediocre to passable. I have a total of 3 of them, and I'll review them all in the coming years, of which this is the first. 3 games came out on the PS2, while the PS3 only had 1 game, which this is the Terminator Salvation is the subject. The film version of Terminator Salvation copped a good deal of flack by fans and some critics for being a mediocre sequel, although I'm happy to disagree with them and personally believe that it was the best of the post-Judgment Day sequels so far, and the most original of the bunch, having been sent to future war without any mind-bending time travel horseshit. Although still outgunned slightly by the then-present Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles TV series, which wound up being canned purely to avoid conflicting with any film sequels, despite being generally well received by fans. This game version, however, copped an epic ass-kicking by gamers for the various faults it had with it, although not as epic as Aliens Colonial Marines did. I'll review Aliens Colonial Marines in the future. As well as the crudity of the graphics and the poor quality of the cutscenes and voice acting, as well as the surprisingly limited scope of the game's objectives. This was the only game released by short-lived Halcyon Games, a subsidiary of the Halcyon Company, which was a studio set up to produce a film version of Terminator Salvation, although the arcade version of the game was a reasonable hit. As a result of poor sales and a bad reputation, the game ended up sinking developer Studio Grin. The game is a prequel to the film version, taking place in LA of 2016 AD. 12 years after Judgment Day occurred, the human survivors of the nuclear fire have formed a resistance to fight Skynet and its army of murderous robots, including its elite killers, the T-600 Terminators, basically the rubber-skinned infiltrators Kyle Reese warned Sarah Connor about back in the original Terminator film. But John Connor, the prophesied leader of the resistance, is not the leader he was meant to be. Instead, he's still just a common foot soldier on the front line. His faith is pretty much gone by this point, although the upcoming mission in the game will go a fair way to helping restore his faith. After narrowly escaping an aborted mission and making it back to the rendezvous point, where a group of fighters are planning to get an LF back to base, Connor gets a radio distress call on an open line from a group of resistance fighters trapped in Skynet Regional Command in Eagle Rock. But when he informs his commanding officer of the call, the officer refuses to send help. So Connor and his comrade-in-arms Blair Williams, the chick who befriends Marcus the infiltrator in the film, decide to go alone to rescue them, just in time to survive an attack by a harvester robot that decimates the rest of the group. Fleeing into an exposed sewer, Connor and Blair embark on an adventure that will see them meet new friends and gain an alliance with a group of survivalists living in the subway system. That will assist them greatly in rescuing the surviving trapped fighters in enemy territory and beginning Connor's rise up the ranks, cement his place in history, as well as proving that to him every life is sacred. While the objective in Terminator Salvation, the video game, is simple enough to go on a rescue mission into enemy territory to bail out some trapped soldiers, it is, however, not substantial enough to justify the plot of an entire video game story. And the cost of rescuing those half-dozen trapped soldiers is far higher than the benefits. Although you do offset this cost somewhat by rescuing the survivalists and having them join the resistance, while the enemy facility is destroyed in the process. And to add to that, there's no innovation in the story. It just feels like an extended side mission objective in something like Call of Duty and its many spin-offs and derivative franchises. The level design here is both clever and crude at the same time. Due to the fact that the game takes place in a post-nuclear Holocaust Los Angeles, the settings are all ashen-colored ruined buildings and abandoned streets, some with greenery growing out from the concrete rubble everywhere. Heck, there are even charred cars everywhere, which serve an important purpose of providing necessary cover to protect yourself from enemy attacks. But the environment is rendered in a limited manner. You cannot go out and explore surroundings as effectively as other first-person shooters do, since the design isn't planned out that way. Pickups are only in limited areas closest to the action, since the levels are extremely linear and don't support alternative strategies in playing the single-person campaign. Also notable is that there is a surprising number of empty cardboard boxes lying around the ruins. Nuclear explosions will wipe these boxes out very easily. The game's structure and combat is also very limited. The majority of the game has you playing the role of John Connor, actually the entirety of the game, but the majority is going from location to location and blasting apart any robots you encounter, of which there are only a limited number of types. The two most common enemies you encounter are the T-70 Spider, an armored four-legged robot that looks more like a crab, that has a heavily armored shell with an exposed battery pack on its backside, forcing you to either get your AI squad mates, who due to poor programming are sometimes complete idiots, to shoot it by having you act as bait, and also to note that due to the uniformly lethal melee attacks that robots perform on you if you get too close to them, it is best to keep a safe distance, or for you to use the cover system to outflank the machine gun, then the machines then get to its weak spot. Although spiders are never deployed on their own, usually in pairs, and the aerostat, an annoying flying robot that can wear your health down, usually deployed in swarms. Although this can be difficult because you cannot proceed past a section unless you destroy every machine in your way, including every last one of each aerostat swarm, which is why you should keep your shotgun handy with you at all times. The T-600 Terminator comes less frequently and gets more common in later levels, where you either face T-600 endoskeletons without their rubber skin, the most common type, which tries to mow you down with its minigun, and can literally kill you with a bitch slap if they get too close, and the skin job version with the rubber skin old rag clothing to fool people into mistaking them for fellow humans, but take damage much easier than the standard models. Although these early model infiltrators come with a grenade launcher, so you best keep your distance. All the robots act as bullet sponges if you attack them with a standard M41 assault rifle, so that puny-ass weapons should be replaced with heavier weapons once you come across them, although it is adequate as a last resort. Pickups of the M41 are common, and your AI teammates will give you spare clips if you need them. While there are no designated bosses in this game, the iconic hunter-killer flying tanks do act as the closest games against having bosses, since they are present in rare portions of the game and come alone, except for their last appearance in the HK tank level, where you fight off a pair of them. To fight these things off, you need to use an RPG-7 rocket launcher. No other weapon can destroy them, except for a mounted machine gun in the first rail sequence, and luckily for you, the RPG-7 launchers are always available whenever you need to fight HK on foot. The weapons in this game are very limited in number, and unlike most other genre-themed games, are entirely based on real-world weapons, except for the pipe bombs, but that's kind of irrelevant here. There's the M41 assault rifle, which you start with, a very weak weapon that doesn't have much effect on anything other than the spider, and only then to attack the battery pack on the back. Aerostats are susceptible but very hard to hit accurately with a rifle, while the Remington 870 pump shotgun is by far the best weapon to have with you, constantly, since it will decimate aerostat swarms in one shot and can destroy a spider's battery pack or put some serious hurt on the T-600 with a few well-placed shots. You also get access to the M249 machine guns, which deal slightly heavier damage than the M41 and have large ammo clips, but you can't carry as much ammo reserves for them, only 2 clips including the one loaded. The hand grenades and pipe bombs are also affected by very limited ammo and need to be precisely thrown, while the RPG-7 rocket launcher, strange how a Russian-made weapon so common here, is the most powerful weapon in the game per shot, but you can't carry much ammo for it, unlike 3 rounds. The M79 grenade launcher that was famously used by the Terminator in T2 is also here, but while weaker than RPG-7, it's still a good weapon to carry around, while having slightly more ammo reserves for it. You can like 5 rounds compared to the 3 for the RPG, but still pretty limited in how much you can carry with you. The best option is to have an explosive weapon in a shotgun for your arsenal loadout, or for having a shotgun in the Info 249 for your loadout is a good second option. The rail sequences in this game are fiendishly difficult due to their surprisingly mediocre design. Even good players will find it hard to get these sections complete on their very first go, or even playing them a second time, particularly the final section, Survivalist Escape, where you have to shoot down those murder Terminators, the robot motorcycles, before they get too close to Survivalist School Bus, which is tricky due to your aim being hard to draw a bead on, and the HK tank sequence's final area, with the fourth missile site. A little advice, shoot down one of the hunter killers heading towards the fourth site so you can buy yourself enough time to destroy the Skynet missile turrets. It can be tricky. The problem here is that in some of the rail sequences the aim is constantly in flux instead of being static, causing you to constantly hold your phone in place to avoid crosshairs drifting off target. Add to that the rapid overheating of your weapons, and you can see why these sections of the game are the hardest. The graphics in this game are very poor compared to other PS3 games, instead resembling something made for a PS2. It is known that the game was battling a short deadline to be released at the same time as the film version, which meant that the developers didn't have enough time to add on a multiplayer mode, with a polygon count consistent with PS2 games from a generation before. There are problems with the technical side of things, such as clipping errors, characters and enemies getting stuck in the surroundings, the game crashing during loading screens, which tends to happen if you, and by the way, loading scenes, you can move the T600's face around to get a good look at its face, but if you move it around too fast, it will crash, as well as a rare occasion when your AI teammates die inexplicably, forcing you to restart the level to bring them back. I played this game about a dozen times, and it's only happened to me once, that one. As for the voice acting, the actors providing the voiceovers are given dialogue that wouldn't cut the mustard in a high school play, and despite the presence of 2 actors from the film version and several well-known genre actors such as Rosemary McGowan and Edo Ross, the acting is utterly mediocre. The cutscenes are also very badly directed in a few houses down the street from the stands that the PS3 games operate on. While the characters of Blair Williams and Barnes are played by the film version's same actors, Moon Bloodgood and Common respectively, and sound okay, the decision to employ an unknown actor to play John Connor was a controversial choice, and rather unavoidable given that Christian Bale refused to voice his own character for some reason. And while everybody else didn't like that, I actually thought the actor playing Connor did a passable job. My problem was the bad dialogue he was given. The game also has a very short time span. Most people can complete this game in less than 4 hours. I personally managed to beat it in just under 3 hours. I have heard that some people out there managed to clock it in at 58 minutes. Very impressive. And there is virtually no replay value here, or for those out there who are trophy and achievement junkies will find this the easiest ways to boost their score, since all you have to do to obtain several gold trophies and a platinum is to simply complete the game in the highest difficulty. Shouldn't be too hard for you diehards out there. Aside from that, there's really not any good reason to recommend this game to anybody but Terminator game completers, and even then it's a bit of a stretch. I give Terminator Salvation the video game a D+, 3 out of 10. A disappointing game that fails to do anything worthwhile with the concept, and is probably close to matching the PS2 game version of Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, as the worst of the Terminator games. There's no gore in this game, and no nudity either, although in the second chapter you'll see a pair of naked female clothing store mannequins standing inside Bernard's shop. I hope you enjoyed that. Stay safe, and that's it for this review.